Zalefyn. Zalefyn could barely stand to be around Basil. He would go nowhere in life. He would never be a good mage. Without his own magic, he could only ever be a lowly wizard. If she were to marry a mage, they would have to be a sorcerer. Even if Basil were named a master, Low King Citrine would never contract a wizard to serve Sithica, and she refused to move to some pitiful village without access to the city's amenities she had grown accustomed to, namely, comfortable weather, a personal bath, and daily gossip. Besides, Zalefyn did not want him holding her back from her ambitions. I will never settle for anyone. I will be important. The easiest way to do that is to marry someone of a higher status, and only if that fails will I work for it. To accomplish her goal, she networked with the Spawn. Both ketone and aldehyde were too old for her, but they could bring her up by association. To forget about keeping company with the likes of lowly Basil, she decided to go shopping. She wanted to buy something pretty to feel better about herself. She didn't have much in her gem pouch at present, mostly table cuts and pitiful shards, but she had a couple of slaves to barter. Entering the kitchen, she found Five and told him, "Come." Five looked at 72 and 30 uncertainly, but he followed. Zalefyn found 18 loading a chunk of limestone into an oxen cart. "Put that down and follow me." He likewise obeyed and trailed after her along with Five. She had to admit she enjoyed the feeling of her slaves following her every order, but it was something she could live without as well. Marching her property to her favorite jewelry store, she decided that a new necklace would suit her fancy. The anticipation built in her, and she nearly skipped in her silk dress to hurry the distance along. When she opened the door into the glittering shop, she admired all the gorgeous jewels on display. "Hello, Mistress Zalefyn. Looking for something special today?" the owner asked her pleasantly. If her life depended on it, she could not have remembered the shopkeeper's name, even though she was a frequent patron. "Yes, I need the prettiest necklace you have," she replied shortly, scrutinizing the dazzling items nearest to her. So far, nothing caught her attention. Everything that was on display was like something she had seen before, and she wanted something extraordinary and unique. "Well, I do have a recommendation. On this shelf right here, we have a lovely piece forged in Ikazu from Devorian gold and a pear-cut diamond from Coserai." Colorless, geometrically cut edges sparkled in a cold yellow ribbon, with one massive stone dangling from the necklace's center. It was unique, but it was not necessarily within her price range. Still, she wanted it. "I'll trade you my 2 slaves for it," she offered, thinking she strategically manipulated the situation. I'm certainly getting the better bargain, but he's too stupid to see that. Who would ever prefer to have a human over a necklace? Even if they were presents from my father and we grew up together. "I can use the big one in my mines over in Coserai, but what good is the scrawny one?" the merchant questioned skeptically. "He's an artisan. Put him up in one of your workshops in Ikasu to sculpt the raw materials." It was a lie, but if Five were to contradict her, she would punish him every day for the rest of his life. "He has crafted some beautiful objects out of broken pieces of limestone, and his wood carving is just as spectacular. I couldn't imagine his creativity wouldn't resonate in crafting precious gemstone pieces as well." "You strike a hard deal, my dear, especially because I'll have to pay someone to escort them to their new posts. But I accept the offer," the shop owner agreed. "The necklace is yours." Happily, Zalefyn grasped the chain and fastened it around her neck. The massive glitzy gem sat right under her collarbone, and she looked at herself wearing the necklace for a long time in the shop's mirror. With the translucent stone, she could have mistaken herself for nobility, or, better yet, royalty. Still, the transaction hollowed her stomach. She suppressed the feeling, and she did not look at her old slaves as she exited the store and headed to the Cathedral of the Grateful. There wasn't a pious drop of blood flowing through Zalefyn's veins. She entered the massive cathedral, hoping for a chance to catch ketone or aldehyde after their meditation session with Vetron's low priest. Any chance Zalefyn had to go to the market, she was sure to stop by the beautiful cathedral. Aside from looking at colorful panes of glass, she loved the vast open spaces, but more than that, she wanted to accidentally run into one of the Spawn. It had only happened a couple of times, but she was hopeful nonetheless. She always knelt at the altar of Asiel, the archangel to rule over the first age. He was almost everyone's favorite archangel. Besides, since he was the first, that makes him the best. Rather than pray, she obsessed over the necklace that she had recently purchased. Everything about the size, shape, and lack of color of the stone enthralled her. However, even her imaginings had their limits, and she grew wearied. After the cathedral candles required replacing, she had not seen either of the spawn. Zalefyn's legs had started to protest her kneeling, so she stood and looked to the scaffolding and the numerous staircases that connected the higher rooms and crossed each other in diagonal directions high above her head. As if searching for some past archspawn the priests had delivered sermons about, she dropped all emotions from her face. Her facade cracked occasionally as amusing contemplations twisted the corners of her mouth. Still, she remained disappointed. Although she had bored herself, she was reluctant to return home. Her father would disapprove of her actions, but she didn't want Basil's friends drawing him to her house anymore. If Zalefyn had been bold, she would have gotten rid of his parents too. But 72 and 49 weren't her slaves to trade away. Perhaps on another occasion, she'd find an excuse to trade them off, so she'd never have to see the wizard around her stately house again. She fingered the diamond pendant dangling at the base of her throat. Maybe Basil's parents will fetch a matching pair of earrings.